Hi, this is Sandra Watson with Rockin' the Blocks of the ABCs of Google+. And welcome. We're glad to have you here today. And I bet you're wondering why you can't see me. It's because I haven't put on my picture yet. Hi again. It's me. Okay, Sean. A, B, C, D, E, F, G.
Google Plus
for you,
you and me.
And as I showed you on the trailer, guess what? I didn't have any problems with my blocks today because masking tape.
Yay, well done, Sandra.
Okay, everybody. We're really excited. We've got a really good show today. We're going to be discussing a lot of fun things. I'm really excited. We have a guest today, Guy Davis, whom we'll introduce in a moment. But before we do that, I'd like to introduce my co-host, my partner in crime here, Sean Mahon from across the pond in the UK. Sean just finished a 90-mile, 5-day hike in the wilderness, kind of. Not all wilderness. He'll tell you about it a little bit. But he's having a little bit of a raspy throat because he also was camping out at night in a tent. So, Sean, why don't you just say hi and a little bit about what you do, and then we'll get on with Guy.
Yeah, no, thanks very much, Sandra. It's a real pleasure. I know, seeing some of the people on the stream, I've met a number of you before. But what I do in the UK is I actually do a lot of local marketing consultancy. But I'll leave that aside and I'll talk about the interesting stuff. So I've just finished a 90-mile walk for charity over 5 days. And I know you're going to find it very, very hard to believe, but it actually rained, which I know in the UK is kind of a strange thing to happen. But we did have a lot of rain. So if I start rasping and coughing, that would be the reason why. But it was a fantastic experience. I don't want to take too much time. My feet are aching, but I'm nearly recovered, so I'm really looking forward to the show. Thank you, Sandra. And yeah, let's talk to the important person.
I have to apologize. I forgot to blue box you, which means I forgot to bring you on the big screen. You are now on the big screen, so smile.
Sandra, I won't forgive you for that, Sandra. That's so bad.
Does that have anything to do with Trekkies? I have to know. Okay, good.
I don't know.
Any of you that have read the intro on this show, it's about cartoons, Trekkies, and Google+. And that's the reason that we asked Guy to be on today. He has experience in all of them. Sean is an avid Trekkie, not cartoons, but Trekkie. And you know what? I know absolutely nothing except I've watched one episode. And again, people can really have a lot of fun with that one. Guy, I know that you have quite a background. You write code, you do websites, you do cartoons, you are a Trekkie, and you also are a gamer. You're an avid space fan, etc. We're going to cover a lot of these things today. But before we, yeah, it is. Before we get into a lot of that, just say hello and introduce yourself shortly. You know, not in a long length. And then we'll get back to going into detail on some of these things. So, Guy?
Okay. Hi there. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And I appreciate... Oh, there we go. I'll bring up my... there we go. I didn't have it up, and I was like, oh, I didn't have that up. I'm Guy Davis, and I'm actually the creator of the webcomic Springs, which you can find at springscomic.com. I've got 25 years as a graphic artist, and I've got a degree in animation, which is where actually all of this comes from. As you know, as Sandra had said, I'm an avid Trekkie, and I've been that since I was 3. So that's, you know, I've got a lot of running time on that. And all of those things are true, she said. They're very true. I've got all these different interests. But I'm glad to be on the show. Thank you.
Cool. Well, the one thing I want to bring up front is Guy is very new to Google+, but he's not new to the internet or social media, but he is new to Google+. And because we are the ABCs and rock on the blocks, that was a good one to have Guy around, because being new, he has ideas and ways that he thinks he can use it. And we're going to see if he's got... what he needs to do, or if he needs some help. And we're going to ask the audience. Sean and I are going to bring in some suggestions, and maybe he's going to help us too. You just never know. One of the things that I want to start off with, because we've been having so much fun with this whole Trekkie thing, obviously behind Guy, it does look, I mean, I'm gonna bring you up, but look what's behind him. It looks like we're on a spaceship, and I watched my very first episode of Star Trek this Sunday night, only because I found out that I was confusing, okay, don't get too mad now, Star Trek and Star Wars. I thought they were one and the same. Not a good thing to do when you're around the people that know what they're doing, you know, the authority ones on this. So I now will never do that again. I said, I promise I won't. But it's really cool. Now, the other thing is, if you look on Guy right there on his left breast area, there's like a little insignia or something. They were telling me before that this is the new way that Trekkies communicate. They don't use their little phones. They just push on that. So what I decided was, guess what? I can put my hand over the blocks and I can push on those and I can talk. So, guess what? I have an announcement to make. I told Sean that I would tell him this, what's going to be happening in Denver on June 14th. We're going to be having a Trekkie reunion. So, Guy, why don't you tell him about it so he can just get all jealous?
That's at the Denver Comic-Con, which is going to be here on the 15th of June, at that weekend. William Shatner is going to be hosting the reunion of the Next Gen cast. So they're going to be bringing in Jonathan Frakes, everybody but Patrick Stewart, looks like. Jonathan Frakes, LeVar Burton. I think that Gates McFadden's going to be there. Will Wheaton. And I'm trying to think if I know that Tasha Yar's character, Denise Crosby,
cool.
She'll be there too. And it's evolving even as we speak. They're also bringing in, unrelated to that, but related to a similar long-running television show. The Seventh Doctor, Sylvester McCoy, will also be there, which is great because I'm a fan of both of those. But yeah, so that we've got this big convention, and it's the big one. It's at the Denver Convention Center downtown with the big blue bear. So you know, it's.
And guess what, Sean? He's going.
No, I'm just booking the flights now. Let me just let me just check.
Well, we've got a couch. We've got a couch here, Sean. You can
I'll be there. I'll be in my TARDIS. Don't worry.
Well, I have to say, Carmen said, beam me up, Scotty, and then hi, well, we have two Carmens in here, my gosh, and hello to the second Carmen Rojas. So no fear, you're late. You are going to have a lot of fun. All right. We've got some of the Trekkie stuff out for the beginning, but I'm sure it's going to be popping up along the way. Anyway, Guy, one of the questions that Sean and I wanted to ask you and have you explain to the audience was, you've been in social media before. What social media are you in now, currently have been? Just give us a little background on what you have been doing before you came to Google+.
Well, of course, I started out with Facebook, as most people do. And I had a DeviantArt account because I'm an artist and I do other things besides my comic strip that are more detailed and more elaborate. And those were really where I started, but as I wanted to become more of a professional for this, it seemed like I wanted to really broaden out. I needed to go to Reddit. I needed to go to Tumblr. I needed to make sure I was tweeting. The currency of the internet really is your social media connections. And so you've got to be as broad as you can possibly get. And initially, I didn't actually look at Google Plus because it seemed like it was still in its infancy. It wasn't going anywhere, and it wasn't really, you know, they hadn't established themselves. This was a year or two back when they were still trying to gain ground. So I stayed kind of away until recently, and realized that there's a lot of people out there on Google Plus, and they're moving away from Facebook. I had said earlier, I feel very much like Facebook is starting to wane. The popularity, their business model's got a problem, so they're kind of having some difficulty with it.
I find it interesting that you coming here new, that you see that kind of correlation, because we hear the conversation all the time here on Google Plus and have for at least 6 months, how things in Facebook have changed and are not what they war, etc., blah, blah, blah. But you just getting here, seeing it, and that's the reason you left. I think that's a little bit of validation to what people are saying.
Yeah.
Before I forget, I do want to say hi, Tim Longwell. He wanted to say hi to everybody, and we want to acknowledge the people that we have. And Tim is an artist also, just for your information, Guy. And at some point, yeah, so you can have some fun. All right, Sean, I'm going to let you do a little bit of talking.
Yeah, I'm going to do a little bit of coughing. Just forgive me.
You can do that too. We could sit here and geek out all day long about Star Trek.
Yeah, indeed. Sorry, guys. For those that have just joined, I've just got a little bit of a cough here, which is a bit awkward. But can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you just fine.
Cool. Okay. One thing I'm quite curious about, and it follows on from Sandra's point, you've clearly had a certain amount of success on Facebook. And I totally agree, Guy, with your point about social media being part of the currency. Have you noticed anything on Facebook in terms of your reach? So where you may have got a certain amount of hits or acknowledgement or likes or comments 6 months ago from your posts, has that declined? Has that changed in any way? And are you noticing that contrasting with what you're seeing on Google+? There's a hell of a question for you.
No, actually, it's a great question. And what it is that, you know, of course, I started trying to actually monetize my comic strip in January. And so I've really been starting to put a push to get that strip out as part of a business model. And that changes your mindset about how you're dealing with things. And so once I did that, I actually started working with the monetization functions in Facebook as well. And what I've discovered is that it is going down in Facebook. My comic strip is not your standard fare for the culture today as far as webcomics go. A little bit of history for me on this one is I started trying to draw it in 2000 as Charles Schulz was retiring. And so my strip is more of that kind of traditional comic strip that you'd see in a newspaper. It's more like, you know, Peanuts or Calvin and Hobbes, and less with a cynical bite that you've got sort of in modern day webcomics. So I know that it's not going to gain as much ground as some of the other ones that have that kind of elaborate structure. But I was kind of dismayed by the fact that I wasn't getting as much ground as I wanted out of Facebook. My friends would share it. My strips would go out there, and I would get a reach. And some of them are a little wilder than others, and some of them have more pointed topics than others. But I wasn't getting the reach I was looking for. With Google+, I'm getting a lot more reach. I'm noticing it's going a lot farther, and with less time. You know, I've been cultivating my Facebook world for, well, 5 months now. And I've only been cultivating my G+ for 1 month. And I've got a lot more traction going on G+ than I did on Facebook.
And what would you attribute that to? That's quite fascinating.
I think that the style and structure of Google is a lot better. I think that there's more. It's something in the way that the search engines look or search for things. But I also think that it probably has something to do with the link to Google itself. I have a feeling that my strips may be popping up on Google searches, which of course strips on Facebook would never show up on a Google search.
No, and that's got to be a big reason as to why you've come on. I had a bit of a smile just then. John Harris has just written "Live long and prosper," which I thought, at the risk of breaking into a wheeze, I thought that was really very funny. On,
you can also say, you know, plus like long life, you know.
Plus and long life, indeed.
Yes.
Sorry, Sandra, this is turning into Trekkie Fest. I didn't apologize.
All the Trekkie jokes start going back and forth.
Oh my gosh. You know, it's just way too funny because I shared one of your cartoons. What started this, I just shared it into my stream, Guy. The one that you did on Cinco de Mayo, the 5th, you know, May the 5th be with you. And that's when I got in trouble because I confused it with, I said they were one and the same kind of, you know. I thought that was Star Trek. But I got reprimanded really quickly.
Well, and I'm an equal opportunity geek. I mean, my heart will always be with Star Trek because that's what I grew up with. I mean, I started watching Star Trek. I remember when Star Trek was in reruns in the early 70s. I remember laying on the couch with my mom, you know, and we'd watch Star Trek. and that was sort of one of those comfortable memories that I had when I was a child.
Me too.
And I remember, my dad and I would sit around the table and we'd discuss episodes like Let This Be Your Last Battlefield, the one with the half white and half black faces, which was all about racism. And it was all about making racism look stupid, because it really is stupid. When you look at racism from an outside point of view, it really is stupid. And if you got, well, he's black on the left side of his face, not the right side, and you're sitting there going, well, that's just a dumb thing. And then you're like, oh, I get it. And I remember my dad going, you see, that's the point. And I remember us sitting around and talking about that. So Star Trek will always be in my heart. But of course, I've been at every Star Wars movie that's opened. I remember seeing Star Wars in '77. I don't remember much. I remember the Death Star blowing up, but that's about it. So it's geeks are geeks. We just have our threads. So it's not like it's a major insult. It's still.
Oh, I don't take it as an insult. I think it's comical.
It's one of those things. Everybody has their geek. I mean, if I were to. I've been saying this on the other show that I was talking about too, Geek Tank, where we were talking about this too. Sports fans are geeks. They're just a different kind of geek. If you were to say something about soccer or football, and you were referring to a different team or the wrong team, you come to Denver and you start talking about how much you like the Oakland Raiders, you're gonna get killed. Because the Bronco fans, Broncos hate the Raiders. That's something that's always happened. But it's the same thing. They're dressing in their little uniforms. They're going to the big conventions. It's just that the conventions have all the stars out on a field throwing a ball around. But everything's the same.
Actually, do you know what? And this is just totally popped into my head. You could say the same about social media too, couldn't you? And this isn't it's not a contrived attempt to bring it back to social media. It just popped into my head that, and it really isn't. Honestly, it does sound like it is. But you get your tribes, don't you? I bought a book off Amazon the other day, and this guy, I forget his name, but it's an extraordinary book, and the principles.
What's the name of
book, it? It's so good, the book, that I can't remember the author or the title. It's that amazing.
Was it the one with Seth Godin?
No. Okay. I'll dig it out. It's just over there. But while the principles of social media communication are universal, if you like, to a greater or lesser extent, depending on the platform, I couldn't believe how vitriolic and how spiteful this guy was about Google Plus, as an example. So it's again that tribal thing, that geeky thing, isn't it? You see it even here. And Sandra and I were talking about how sometimes people set themselves up as authorities, and heaven forbid if your view of what social media is about differs to theirs. Don't you think that all of this gets a bit tribal too? Do you think that's?
I think that we're all in a way tribal, because humans are unique in the animal kingdom in that we can choose our family. I choose who's in my family. Now, I can choose that my dad is in my family, or I can, if he was a bad dad and he beat me or whatever. He didn't. He's a lovely dad, by the way. Because he talked Star Trek with me. I mean, seriously. Well, if he was that way, I can eject him from my family. I can take Sandra and make her part of my family if I want.
True.
And so we have to, because our brains can't handle a family of 9 billion people, we have to start coming up with, well, okay, what's the rules for my family then? And my family are people who are geeks, and they will watch Star Trek or Star Wars, and some people take that to an extreme. Are you inside my cave, or do I have to throw a spear at you, sort of thing? We've got kind of that feeling going for it, and it's the same thing. And it's sport fans, it's religions do that same thing. Politics do that same thing. I see it all over the place.
Wow. Okay, that's really. Way out there. I feel like I'm out on this.
Sorry, Sandra.
Sorry, Sandra.
You know what? It's really good stuff. It really is. But I want to know more now about what Guy Davis does, so that we can get back to what Google Plus is going to do for you.
Thank you, Sandra.
Well,
and listen, John Harris said, sounds like Guy Davis is equating the word geek and fanatic.
To some degree, yeah. I mean, fanatics and geeks are of the same vein. There's a certain amount of, like, my wife is not as much of a geek. She's not so much fanatical about stuff. But geeks have their own little, veins of things that they do. And so do sports fans. And so do politicians and, religious people. Some people, and you see it in all of these different aspects. There are people who are really intense. And if you say that you don't believe in, whatever is their belief system in religion, you find people who have, they'll shut you out. And the same thing goes with politics. If you're not a Democrat or a Republican, you'll end up being shut out. If you're, and you get all of that. It's so to a degree, there's like a variable on fanaticism. But
well, then in Google Plus, do we do the same thing?
I think we do. I think that technology has caused that same field. I was just discussing this today. I mean, I use for my drawing, I use a Microsoft Surface, and this is what I use to draw on, and it's a beautiful, it's a tablet PC, but it allows me to draw with a pen. And I've been looking for one for a very long time that'll run Photoshop, which is very important to me because I've been using that forever, and I'm familiar with it. But also will allow me to draw with pressure sensitivity and things like that, so I can get some line distinction and all the things that we learned in college that we have to do when we draw things. And it's taken me a long time to get there, and I was realizing I was talking yesterday because I need to get a new adapter for it. And they're opening a new Microsoft store at Flatirons Crossing, which is nearby. And I was talking to the guy at Office Depot, and he's like, they're opening a new store, isn't that great? And I was like, yeah, that's actually really exciting. And I said, oh my goodness, we sound like Apple people. And I realized that it's just, you get these fanaticisms going. That Apple people have the fanaticisms too. They love their iThings, they love their iPhones, they love their iPads, and there's nothing wrong with this. And I love my Microsoft Surface, and Microsoft's doing the same thing. They're trying to get Microsoft phones and Microsoft tablets, and they're trying to get into that same vein, and they're trying to tap the fandom, and that's what's going on. And so to lead us back to this discussion, that's the point behind social media, is if you're trying to extend your fandom out, and I want to extend my fandom out because I've got a comic strip that's quirky and it's not mainstream, so I know I need to really grab that 0.5% of a 0.5% of a 0.5% of all the people out there. I need to go as broadly as I can, and I need to get as many social media outlets as I can involved.
Yeah. Okay, and then let's just take, for instance, right now, let's just talk about your comic strip.
Okay.
Because that's one of the things I know that you've come to Google Plus for, because you really are wanting to make your comic strip the focus of your passion, if you will, your attention. Am I correct?
Well, that's where I'm moving to, yeah.
Okay. And Sean, you and I were talking about this yesterday and how he might do that. And one of the things he just said has quirked my mind a little bit, in that he has to go as broad as possible. But in Google Plus, isn't it true, though, that he can be more focused on that category in a way to get him the market that he wants? Like we were talking. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I think it might be quite useful to look at it from Guy's perspective, but also to think about the audience that we've got here. And maybe people might want to post some ideas on the stream as we talk. But as you're no doubt aware with your experience on Facebook has obviously got communities. And I just wondered what your experience was, if you've had any so far with the communities in Google Plus, Guy. Because one of the things that occurred to me is that if you want to extend your reach very quickly, and I'd advise anybody who's got a business who wants to do that with a particular niche focus to look at communities on Google. Sorry, this is the most compound question I've ever asked. Forgive me. Let me start again before everyone hangs themselves from the ceiling. Let's put this into very, very brief words. Have you ever looked at the communities on Google Plus? Would be a far easier way rather than this huge compound question that was coming out.
I actually have not experienced the communities yet.
Okay.
I'm very unfamiliar with it, so. Yeah.
Well, Sean, would you give an example like what we were talking about yesterday? Because I would. I mean, I'll be honest. I came onto Google Plus about 6-7 months ago. So
November, I had about 60. It's not about followers, by the way. I don't say it is that. It's about engagement rather than numbers of followers. But I hardly had either followers or any engagement. And one of the things I found was very helpful was I looked at relevant communities that fitted in with my niche, if you like, which happens to be marketing and social media. And what I found was that naturally people who were more, I had a greater affinity to, not necessarily pure on a personal level, but on a business level, it was very easy to seek out communities that of like-minded folk and start posting in those communities and very quickly build an engagement without all of the other things that you could do on Google+, which would include setting up appropriate circles, would include doing Hangouts. So I was just thinking from your point of view, maybe if I was in your shoes, I would do I would do a search within Google Plus for cartoon strip communities.
Sean, just for your information, I just put up on the screen community of animation communities.
Bless you, because probably I'd lack the technical prowess to do that. So thanks for doing that, Sandra. But when we did, Sandra and I played around with this yesterday, and we found some huge communities. Absolutely, and some are very, very aligned in you know, I don't know, I don't have your skills, but some seem to be very aligned with what you're actually doing, Guy. So maybe that's a good starting point.
So I would just then join these communities, and then they would just broadcast out on my feed. See how that works, or?
Well, what you could do is just participate in a community and share valuable information, much like you would in your public postings anyway. But what you've already got is a segment of people who, by definition, are more closely aligned, perhaps, to your audience. It's just a thought. And over time, I mean, there's this awkward word, isn't there, authority, and I'm a bit uncomfortable with it as to what's meant by authority. And it can be used very pompously, I think, as well. But over time, if you were engaged in an appropriate community, then very quickly people will recognize you. And I only say this because it's not all about business. Many of us come to Google Plus for a number of different reasons. But if you want to grow your cartoon following quickly, that's one way to do it. Sure. I don't know what you think, Sandra. Does that kind of sum up our discussion from?
I think that's very good. What I would just clarify a little bit in that when you're new to the community, you know, look at what other people are saying, everything, and then jump in and comment to what they're talking about and give your opinion and why, or maybe you might know a better way they can do something, and you would bring that up and say, you know, have you tried this or whatever? And pretty soon you're going to look like, because you do know what you're doing. And so people will want to add you to their circles or want to see the kind of things that you're sharing to your stream, and eventually the kind of things that you're putting out as original posts on your own. So it's one of the best ways that you can get into a community of like-minded people that have the similar interests. It may not be that they're doing cartoons. I mean, animation doesn't necessarily mean it's a cartoon strip, even though there are communities like that. But it would be people that have similar interests, and you're going to be found, oh, look, Guy Davis likes a number of things. So then when you do start promoting more of your cartoon strip, it's going to be, well, we need to go check that out.
Yeah, and kind of thinking forward, and this may be applicable to other people who are actually watching, so if they delete the word animation and substitute that with whatever their business is, moving forward, imagine if you were doing Hangouts and you were already pretty active in 7 or 8 communities and had great engagement with those communities. You've already got potentially an audience of anything from 50 to several hundred to maybe several thousand people that when you launch your Hangout, they're by definition more predisposed to be looking.
Join.
You know, and that just occurred to me, because what you do is brilliant. And I think if you just come onto the platform, if you're unaware of communities, that would be one thing I know both Sandra and I would really urge you to take a look at.
Sure. It sounds like the old forums. It's very similar to the old forums.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Except that you have such a huge reach of people. I mean, it's infinity what's out there for you to find.
Well, and Google will help you connect those. Whereas before forums, you just had to kind of snoop around until you found the forums. You know.
Well, I like that. That's really, really good.
Yeah. We refer to that as lurking.
Yeah.
Well, I kind of like sleeping around. Well, no, I mustn't say that. That gives the wrong impression. We take that one back, or it bites me.
Right.
Okay,
So.
Guy. Let's talk about the the cartoon strip and what you have on your lower third here. Let's explain to people one of the other things that you want to do with Google+. I know that, for instance, Craig Chamberlain, who is someone that I follow, and a lot of people that might watch this would know of Craig Chamberlain. So what you're going to talk about, this is something that he uses. So I'm going to ask you to explain what's on the right side of your lower third there and how you find Google Plus to be able to aid you in this.
Right. Okay. So what's on the left side? Right over here.
That's which is our right.
Yeah, right over here. You'll see that orange P. That's a system called Patreon, which is very much it's like Kickstarter except it's perpetual. So it's crowdfunding for artists. I've been sort of talking a little bit about how artists are expected to do one of two things in their life. Either they become Miley Cyrus and they become infinitely popular and they've got people that they pay to move the money out of the way so that they can answer the phone, or you've got people who live under bridges and they paint. And those are sort of it's become really extreme for an artist. It's very hard for them to make a living. And so Patreon came along to sort of address that. And I've got a Patreon here, and it's down at the bottom there, patreon.com/springs. And what it is that you can pledge, just like PBS, you can pledge $1 or $2 or $3 a month to the strip. And as you pledge it, you're sort of crowdfunding the strip and giving the artist, me, a living. And that makes it a little easier than advertising, because advertising brings in, like a half of a penny for every click or something like that. So you need literally 20 or 30,000 clicks to start getting any kind of amount of money, where and of course people don't click through and you lose a lot of that. So Patreon is more targeted. It's more specific. It's for people who are like, oh, I really love that strip. Okay, well, cool. Well, then, you want to give me a dollar or so, throw $1 or so my way every month, and there you go. And now I can start to actually make a living. Just like Kickstarter, it's got stretch goals. So if we start to make as a Patreon, if everybody starts to make, or the income comes into a certain level, I start to add things to the strip. For instance, right now I'm Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. But if we hit $600 a month or more, I'll add a Saturday comic strip, and as we go up more, I'll add then Tuesdays and Thursdays, and ultimately then a half-page Sunday. So you could get my comic strip up to 7 days a week, and it's balanced. When we get to the point where I can actually make a living off of the strip, I'll go 7 days a week because that sounds perfectly reasonable. Right now I'm not making enough money in the Patreon era yet to do 7 days a week.
So that's kind of like subscribing to a weekly, a daily paper, whatever the way it used to be, if you will. I mean, I'm paying to see whatever artist. In your case, a cartoon strip, but in Craig Chamberlain, his is about geek stuff.
Sure.
Because that's what he does. So it's an interesting concept. So then, and I think it sounds great. And you're seeing that Google Plus is going to be able to find you that audience that will be able to then help support you in the comic strip for the future. Is that correct?
Sure. That's exactly what I'm looking for. There's a comic strip that's actually on Patreon right now called Saturday Morning Breakfast Cereal. And it's a strip done by Zach Weinersmith, and he puts it out. It's sporadic. It's not regular. I'm not sure exactly how often he puts out the strip, but he has a large following. And all he's got, he only has 2,500 people on his Patreon, but they're all paying an average of $3 or $4 a month. Well, that's $7,500 a month.
Yeah,
that's not exactly. That's a pretty decent living. And he's now, that's his career now. And that's sort of where I'm headed at this point in time. But the currency here is that I don't have the following he has yet. I'm still new to this. The strip is very old. I've been working on it since 2000, but it was only recently that a buddy of mine said, "Stop trying to syndicate it in newspapers. Put it out as a webcomic." You know, and so I've been putting them out now as a webcomic, and that's new. So I'm relatively new on the field as far as a comic goes, and people want to see that you're regular. They want to see that you're going to be there. If I'm going to give you $3 a month, I want you to produce a comic. So I kind of need the rollout time. I need to use Google Plus. I need to use Facebook to show that I'm putting a comic out every Monday, every Wednesday, and every Friday, and it never stops.
Are you going to be showing your cartoons on Google Plus as posts or anything?
Yeah, I'm actually already. If you follow me, they're coming out on my stream, because Patreon has the ability to share to Google Plus and to Facebook. So every time I put out a new strip, I tell it to share out to Facebook and to Google Plus.
Now you realize that if you are circling people yourself and you put them in a circle, and every time you come out with a new cartoon for the day or whatever, you can send that to the circle that you know likes your cartoon strip or is following that.
Yeah, so, that's something I learned a couple of days ago. I was like, why is it telling me to email to the circles? Why is it saying
do not email?
Yeah, I was going to say I shouldn't email, but I was noticing that it was saying it was adding in circles to my G Plus, and I'm like, I'll have to figure that out because I don't like to spam.
Yeah.
Can I throw something in, Sandra? Do you mind? And it fits in very well with the comment that John's made, John Harris, and I'll just see if I can put that on the screen. Okay. John makes a really good point. When I was talking about communities, I probably over-egged it a little bit, because for me it's all about being real at the end of the day and engagement. So what I would put as a caveat to my comments about communities is that's one tool among many on Google Plus. But you made a really good point just there, Guy. Nobody likes spam. So either, on the one hand, as John says, and I thought this was really amusing, you go into an inappropriate community and it's like you're being assimilated into the collective because that community is just too big, or you don't get engagement, or it doesn't serve you well. So it's one suggestion. But John makes a really good point. I think, Sandra, you were making the same point. We connect with those of like mind. So it is very much about the regularity, Guy, isn't it, of the posting that you were talking about, and building your engagement and responding to people. And you know that. I'm not trying to teach you to suck eggs. You know that stuff already, I know. But I just think, for me, having come from other platforms, without sounding too evangelical, there's so many different things linked into Google Plus. So you've obviously got YouTube, Hangouts, the ability to segment different parts of your audience into specific circles. But at the end of the day, John puts it really well. You know, there's no point doing any of that unless you're really connecting with people who are of like mind. Otherwise, you might as well, you know, just otherwise it gets manipulative, doesn't it? So thanks, John. I think that was a really fair comment. I really appreciate that.
That is a great comment. With my comic strip specifically, one of the things I always loved about Peanuts and Calvin and Hobbes and Zitz and all of those was that even when it wasn't that funny, it was still comfortable. And you knew you were going to get that every morning when you woke up. You had your coffee and you had your comics laying out in front of you. So one of the things I'm really pushing for with mine is that same comfort level. I'll always be there. I'm not going anywhere. I may not always be funny because, you know, as they say, art is subjective, humor doubly so. So, you know, it's all about who I'm trying to find, but I'm trying to find those individual people like that. So looking in communities is always a good idea on this one, because I'm going to be looking to try to extend out to find those two people who really think that my humor is awesome and really funny and thinks that it's great, these little robots, and they're just cute and we love this whole thing. Okay, whatever. That's what I'm looking for, is that what are you interested in? Because art is so subjective. I mean, I think that this pewter spaceship is a great piece of art. And it's a beautiful piece of art, but I know that's to anybody who's not a Trekkie or whatever. It's what is it? What does that mean? I mean, it doesn't even mean anything. It's a lump of metal, and so you have to know as an artist you're going in with the idea that people are going to look at your comic and go, I don't get it, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that, because we are all so diverse.
Can you were showing before the show, Mr. Guy, a couple of things that you wanted to share with us. Why don't you bring up one or two of them and talk about them?
Okay, I will. Thank you very much. I have, this is actually the first picture I had ever drawn of any of my characters back in '99. I was drawing on little yellow notepads. This is my character Don Q. So wait, oh, there we go. I just realized you were taking a picture of me. Hi.
Smile.
I'm smiling now. Okay.
That's cool.
So this is the first character I had ever drawn, and I was trying to figure out how to get sort of a feel of these characters. I wanted them to be simple, so that they were easy to draw, so that I wouldn't have to worry about getting all tied up, because artists always get really tied up about drawing it not correctly and getting, they get all caught up, and I didn't want to get caught up in it. When I wrote this comic originally, it was in 2000, and I wrote it because Charles Schulz was retiring, and I knew that we were going to, after 50 years, we were going to lose Charlie Brown from our daily strips, and I thought, I would really like to, there's going to be a vacuum here. Maybe I can try to fill that vacuum. I had lofty goals, because, I mean, seriously, how can you fill the shoes of Charles Schulz? But it's all right. I mean, it was my idea was, well, there's still going to be a vacuum, a missing strip, and stuff like that. I had no idea he was going to pass away. And Charles Schulz had said in an interview in the 80s, he had said, I have this feeling that Peanuts is going to outlive me, because there was a lead time between the time when he drew the strip and the time that it actually got published. And in a really interesting irony, he died the night before the last strip was published. And it was just an astonishing thing. I'm reading the newspaper, and it says Charles Schulz is dead, and there's the last strip. And it was like, wow. I mean, he had said that in an interview, and it came true. And it's because that Peanuts was his life. Well, I can see doing this for the rest of my life. I really do enjoy the characters. I enjoy drawing, things like that. So this is the first one that I had drawn in '99. And when Schulz died, I actually drew a strip in my notepad. I was already 105 strips in. You can see over on the right hand side there. I was 105 strips in whenever I got the news that Charles Schulz had died, and I drew a strip about that. And I like to show that because it's it was very timely at that time, and I had gotten 105 strips in before I found out, wow, he's gone, and that was really sad. So those are the things that just kind of happened in that era. It was 2000. The web had not really matured yet. There wasn't a real location for it on the web. So I had sent my strips out to be syndicated, and got rejection letters from every one of the syndicates. I keep them around because I keep saying someday I'm going to paper my bathroom with all the rejection letters. Because that's like a thing. It's like artists are always getting rejection.
I'm sure that's not true.
Well, and they always do. And actually, later on, I found out that that's the way you deal with the syndicates is you send it to them, then you wait 6 months and send it to them again, and you wait 6 months and you send it to them again. So that's the way you deal with it. And I, of course, not knowing that, gave up after the first rejection round. So I've gone to the web. I will be releasing my first book, which is also something I wanted to say. I'll be releasing that at in fact, Denver Comic-Con. I'll have a booth there at the con, and I'll be able to sell the book there. And we're going to do a couple limited runs on it, and I'll have that available to patrons who are on my Patreon. I'll have that available at cost for the patrons. So what it costs me to print it, I will give it to the patrons at that cost. And then everybody else can buy it from my website at the MSRP, whatever that is. The normal price for it, maybe a slight discount. And then plus shipping and handling, because I'm sure that sending these books overseas is rather expensive. I remember sending stuff back and forth from Japan. It wasn't.
Yeah.
It wasn't
Can
cheap.
imagine that wasn't cheap. No.
No, it wasn't.
Sean, would you please read this comment here?
I will. It's It's from Alimeo. Alimeo, thank you very much. Alimeo's actually put a thumbs up to your Klingon bird of prey. So he's actually said yes.
It's very lovely.
Yes, I think that Star Trek Pewter Klingon bird of prey is beautiful. So you've got a big thumbs up from Alimeo. Thanks for that, Alimeo.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
And you know, I do want to mention before you go to your next thought, Alimeo is also a 3D animator and does graphics. So the two of you have a lot in common. You probably want to circle each other.
We might just do that. I'll circle you if you circle me.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah, there we go. True social media.
So yeah, we love social media.
We love that. Actually, do you know what? While I'm looking at everything that you were posting just then, Guy, I thought how interactive you made it with your capacity to put animation at different points on the screen. So I know, Sandra, that's something you and I have talked about and we've played around with, but that just works so well, being able to put your book cover up and put other elements in different places. Is that a difficult thing to do? Because I bet there's some people watching this who are thinking, my God, I wish I could do that with,
yes,
when I'm doing Hangouts.
Well, and a lot of it is, obviously that's definitely, it's not complicated, it's more because of my graphic arts background.
Sure.
Once I figured out how to do it, it was just a matter of getting all my graphics together. My mom was a producer with Universal, and then she was a talent agent for most of my life. So I grew up in television, and so the lower thirds make total sense to me, and they're, it's just completely logical because that's what you put on a news show.
Indeed.
And so how you do this is just a natural progression from there. But it's like anything. It's having the ability to understand what's on the bottom of the screen and all the things you need to put up and not stick them right up in front of your face.
You know what I find interesting throughout all of this is that not only are you new to Google+, but you have a plan already in your mind. I mean, it's very definite that you didn't come here just to sit around and wait. You came here with the intention of getting things going and started, and you were going to find out a way to do it. That's the one thing that struck me about meeting you the first time, Guy. And what you're talking about with even the lower third, I mean, look at your lower third. You're only been here a month, and your lower third is very distinctive, and so many times people forget that this still is part of marketing. When whatever we're doing, it is a reflection of our brand and ourself and who we are. And I think that you have grasped that very well, without even maybe not even consciously, but knowing internally it's something you needed to do. Right or wrong? I mean, what are your thoughts on that? No,
absolutely. I mean, first year in college was graphic design was all about marketing. That's the first thing you start with. I have an animation degree, but it started with a graphic design minor, and so, all of this was, and all of what you see behind me is intentional. What I'm wearing is intentional. Everything's intentional. I want to leave an impression. I want you to remember who I am. I want you, and identifying myself as a Trekkie will instantly link me, as we were talking before, with the clan out there that knows instantly what a Trekkie is, knows what, sort of what I enjoy, what my likes are. The things, even putting the Diedrichs behind me is part of this. It's all about the marketing. The blinking lights are all about the marketing. All of this is. And the lower third and what I'm doing with all my presentation pieces. It's so that I'm memorable.
Well, and I think it's very memorable. Personally, I mean, Sean, you and the Trekkie, how much we've joked about it a lot and everything, but every time I place Guy on a blue box and all that stuff's going on in the back, it takes you right back to the spaceship, and it takes us to a different place.
On the bridge. I'm on the bridge.
I am no longer in a hangout on air. I am up in the wherever that is that spaceship is going. I mean, it's part of what we need to be thinking about when we're doing Google+.
Absolutely.
Because people, like you said, they remember us, and I think that's really important that what Guy is doing is making a statement. Sean? I'm rambling. I'm rambling like you do now.
No, God, yeah. I seem to be in rambling mode today. Forgive me, everybody. But no, I think it's true, and I think it is the essence of branding, isn't it? And there'll be some people that don't like it, and that's fine, because that's just like any other human interaction. That's fine. People make their choice. But the beauty of being really clear on what you represent is that people are really clear as to how they can. I don't want to keep overusing that word engaged because it sounds wrong. We're talking about human communication here, but
interact.
That's a perfect word. If people know who I am and what I am, that's a lot easier, isn't it, to interact with me than if they're uncertain as to what I stand for. So, you know, we know what you're about, Guy. We've met you. I know Sandra spoke to you previously, but I've only met you in the last hour, if you like, and already I've got a sense of what you represent, what you can do, and that's reassuring. And that would make me feel good if I came to you for graphic support, or I was a fan of your animation or cartoon strips, which I'm becoming, I have to say. I now know who you are, you know, and that's great. And I probably could have stuck another 30 words in there, Sandra. I don't know what's wrong with my head today. So sorry.
Well,
it's that long walk.
You
long
know
walk
what?
I did.
I am going to change the pace, the subject, and everything. I am totally going to just demolish this right now. This is something that I think that, you know, we're talking a little bit about branding, which had nothing to do with the subject, I understand, but in a way it did, because it is what Guy is looking to do when he comes here. He is branding himself. Well, okay.
By being on this HOA, I'm branding myself.
That's right.
And that's all about what I'm doing here.
Exactly.
Well, and I think you said, Guy, didn't you, that you're very conscious about what's behind you, what's being represented as we watch you on the HOA, and your lower third and everything is all part of that. So there is a strong brand there, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's part of what we're after. And you know, Sandra has been explaining to me a little bit about how Google Plus works. It's less about the item and more about the person.
Oh yeah,
Google
definitely.
Plus. You know, with Facebook, you can hide all of your identities. You can shield yourself. You can put yourself into a different mindset. You can put a business front up front in a way that's completely detached from you. But that, of course, is impersonal. I mean, you know, you can't. You're not sure who's running that. Absolutely. With this, I'm selling me. Yeah, and I'm selling me as my comic strip artist. I'm the artist. You know who I am. You've seen me. You know I'm a Trekkie. I'm a nice guy. I don't kill kittens. You know, all of this stuff. You've met me in essence. And so to a degree, all of this is about branding me as an object, as an item.
Yeah, it's personal branding. Sorry, Sandra. That's I'll shut that down.
I'm going to bring back up the tip off the old block for the day. Can you read it, Sean?
I can. It's the tip off the old block for today is, well, what does it say, Sandra? It says, congratulations, someone has added you. They now will see your posts in their stream. Not all of them. It depends on their settings. Aha. Do you want to tell us more then? Do you want to tell us more then, Sandra?
Well, sure. We're both going to add to it, but since we're talking about, you know, rocking the blocks of the ABCs of Google+, it's part of the branding situation. That's what we're doing here. We want people to learn things when they come here, be happy when they're here, be entertained a little bit, and walk away and say, gee, I'm glad that I spent my time with everybody on the show today. When someone adds you, and like we just said, you know, perhaps Ali Mayo will add Guy and vice versa. Congratulations.
I think he already has, I think.
Did he? I don't see the screen right now. Cool. Well, congratulations. Someone's added you, Guy. They now will see your posts in their stream, but just remember, that doesn't mean they're seeing all of them, because it's just like any other social media in the sense it's not every one of them. And depending on the settings that they have for that circle, they can either see a few, a moderate amount, or a heavy amount of your post. They can also set it so they can be notified whenever you do make a post, and then they can go in and check. If they want to see all of your posts, they always have to go to your profile and look at your post page. So that's why that's on there. It's a great thing. You want people to add you for that reason, because they're getting to see your stream.
Right.
Okay, right. You guys can add to that.
I think you put it very well, to be honest.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I actually, I was noticing that I think that I might need to addendum that I actually have 2 Google Plus accounts because I didn't realize I shouldn't have done that. So the one that is actually me that's broadcasting the comic strips is the one with me and my son over my shoulders. I'm going to change that picture at some point here real soon.
You and I will talk about that before you do anything.
Okay.
How's that?
Because you're all about branding and I'm all about branding, so we're
right.
on the
We
same
want to make sure
page.
Yep.
Absolutely. Want to do it right. Do it right the first time.
Okay, Sean, this is our other fun segment.
You mean the singing? The singing?
No.
Oh, you sticky note. Oh, well, yeah, that's a first. Sticky note moment of the show, Sandra. Sticky moment of the show. So,
go on.
Go for it, Sandra. No, you go on.
No, I'm done.
Okay, Guy. Every week, what we try and do, just to reinforce what Sandra said earlier, is if there were one take-home message that you would like to share, one thing either you've learned or you think that you're going to focus on that would be valuable to the audience, what would that be and why?
That's a good question. I actually think that the one thing that I would probably take from this that would be the most important would be about joining the communities. I actually didn't know that there were communities to join, so I'm going to go do that, and that's one of the things I think I would take with me,
Cool.
because it's all about the branding. So, go in there and brand myself in these communities,
Something that we should probably add to that very quickly is you might want to consider at some point in the future that you actually start a community of your own also.
Totally
I'm
agree.
noticing that there's not that many comic cartoonists or comics on there as communities. I haven't typed in webcomics, but I would think that. Let's see if I can type in. Woo, boy, my computer is not liking doing this at the same time.
Yeah, it's kind of hard sometimes when you're in the middle of the show.
Yeah. So there's like comic or webcomics is definitely. I don't know if there's a community on there. Maybe. I don't know what that is. Anyway, so yeah, it's a Pinterest thing.
Well, we'll show you how to do that after the show, because that's something you might want to consider as you get further down the road. Okay,
or start a community for springs. I mean,
there you go, definitely, exactly.
Come in and start talking about My Little Robots.
Exactly.
Yeah,
oh, that'd be a cool little name, My Little Robots.
My Little Robots. I can even do the music. Da, na, 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 na.
Okay, well, we're at our last 3 minutes. Sean, what would you like to give to the audience?
My take home actually is I need to think more about visual branding. I think with some other hangouts I do, and you've helped me, Sandra. So I'd like to publicly acknowledge that in terms of how you've helped me so far. But I know I'm going to connect with Guy and just pick his brains a little bit, because I really loved what Guy did when he shared the image of his forthcoming book, and I just thought, that's so impactful. We talk about the lower third. That's one aspect, but isn't it marvelous when you can show different things on different segments of the screen? So that I don't know if it's a take-home message, but it's certainly a learn from me. It's made me think about how I can make HOAs even more visually appealing.
Yep.
I think that's very good. I think that one of the things that I talk about a lot is you have the tools of the ABCs. I mean, you know the basics now. What are you going to do with that to make Google work for you for the reason you came? Because it's so much more than that. And we have to treat this just like we would any other business. What is going to set us apart?
Yes.
And I think, Guy, today you have definitely shown what sets you apart and why you're here. And I think that's very helpful to the audience or anyone that watches it later. And I'm sure it's helped you to be here, because when you're new to any place, it's always good just to get in and get your feet wet. So I'll give you a few seconds to give your final adios to the audience. And
closing statements. Closing arguments.
Well,
I'm really grateful that you brought me on board, and I appreciate you bringing me to the show. And I'm glad I didn't trip over myself too much. I was afraid I was sitting there going, I'm going to go live and I'm going to say something stupid and then regret it. So thank you very much for letting me talk. And I'm glad I met you, Sean. I really am. It's
my pleasure too.
And yeah, I look forward to talking to you as well. So we can certainly do it. And
cool.
yeah, thank you very much. And thank
Thank
you,
you.
audience. You guys are cool.
Cool. Okay. Well, Sean.
A, B.
A,
Come on,
B,
Sandra.
C.
B, C, D.
Okay, let's start over.
Let's start again, Joey. That was so well rehearsed. So well rehearsed, ladies and gentlemen. Right, take it from the top. B, C,
D,
D,
E,
F, G.
G. Google Plus for you and me.
And if you're interested, the album's coming out next week. I'm sure after that brilliant example, you'll be wanting to buy it.
And thanks, everybody. Bye, Guy. Bye, Sean.
Bye.
See you
Bye.
next time.